Hello, and welcome back to another episode of I Survived It, where we talk to people who've overcome some obstacles in life and talk about how they've overcome those obstacles to give you guys inspiration and motivation to keep pushing through just the different trials and tribulations that we go through in life. Today, we have a special guest. His name is Brett. He is the owner of Date Jar. And we'll talk about all the different wonderful things he has going on with that business, but I brought him here today because he's dealt with mental health battles, depression, anxiety, and he also went through a breakup after a 12-year relationship. So I'm sure he has some insight to bring to you guys and also some inspiration. So let's welcome Brett to the show. Hello.
Hey, what's going on, Khadijah? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm so glad to have you. I can't wait to hear about your story, your amazing business. And, we're hoping to bring some inspiration to the people that are watching us today.
Okay, good stuff. Good stuff. I'm happy. Let's get to it.
So just let's just get started. So I read that you've gone through some depression, some anxiety. I know a lot of people went through that during COVID, being stuck in the house. But I saw that you had an actual diagnosis of depression. Can you just talk a little bit about how that all came about?
Yeah. Really, that came about in a multitude of ways. If let's, to be really clear, it actually was, going on really before like COVID time frame, and this is when I first had like that feeling and that issue, I guess, arise. The thing was is that when COVID actually struck, it exasperated 10 times fold because of one, there was a great period of that isolation itself. Number two is that everything around me just seemed to be very chaotic, where my job, my livelihood, and then also I had some, changes with my family dynamic that just had me going through it, to be really, really clear. So, and then the last part to it was I didn't understand how to actually verbalize and talk through it. So it's like I was seeking professional help, but I didn't quite understand at that time. It took some time for me to really understand what was going on with me, and
Mhm.
that's where that diagnosis and that issue stemmed from.
And did you like when you were seeking professional help? Is that something that you just knew to do? Like, hey, something's going on, let me get help. I know a lot of times, in certain communities, they have a bad rep for not seeking therapy
Yep.
or getting help. What I guess gave you the courage to go get help, or how did you come about, learning that you need to get help?
Well, getting help is something that, as a personal battle, I've always had trouble doing. I'm like one of those kind of people that when people see me and the image that I exude is that I always seem like I got it all together and I got it all figured out. And I'm like the strong friend that people, reach out to. So there are times and areas where I did have a really great support system and friend base that would, check on me and make sure that I'm good. But as things were progressing and things were happening, I realized that I really needed somebody who was a more of an unbiased ear that came from, that wouldn't, for instance, one either just kind of give me cliche stuff that's like, oh, it's going to be okay or whatever, or better yet, recognize that, sometimes your friends, if you want to talk about certain issues, they're just going to be like team you if they're really your
Right.
people. And, some of the stuff I had to like even be really honest with myself. And I just wanted to hear something or hear from a different perspective, like how I was interpreting certain scenarios. So
Hmm.
that was like one of the biggest catalysts and starts for me to even think about, seeking that help. And then number two was that, in our community, mental health is like, it's kind of a fad or like a trend. But if
Yeah.
you're really going down that journey, it's a huge level of self discovery. And for me even wanting to get that help was a pivot point for the change that I wanted to see in myself and what I was about as a whole. So
Mm.
those were my reasons and as well the ways that I even took the path to seeking that professional help for my mental health.
And how was it going through a 12-year relationship and then it ending? Like how did you overcome, just the pain of that ending?
Well, that's still actually kind of an ongoing thing.
Mm.
I'm gonna be really, like I said, I'm still dealing with some of that right now, and
Hmm.
but really the catalyst and the way to forward was me having some alone time, like true alone time. And again, from that COVID era and just that whole shift in just the world, it
Right.
made me look at relationships totally different. And it made me also look at the lens too of not just from like a negative side of it, but really more the positive things, like what were the elements that were fulfilling for me, what were the things that were good, and as well, what did I learn from it all. So I had some real time to really digest and sit with those thoughts and those feelings, coupled with, like I said, talking regularly to a therapist and also having a pretty good support system from friends and family. It gave me a way to just really retool my mind. And also, it was a way for me to even re-establish myself out into the world.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really the driving point, is that one, I know I needed to make a change,
Mm-hmm.
and as well, there was just so much going on around me that, it was just time, and I just had to, just like I said, sit with those feelings and not, just do too much or move forward in any other particular way.
The guest that we had on the last show, she said you have to feel in order to heal. Like you have to actually feel the feelings instead of kind of pushing them to the side. And we have a tendency to keep going, and not actually sitting in those feelings. So I love that.
Yeah,
Um, you
I
were
want to.
saying, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was gonna say, I wanted to say really too, is that I didn't really recognize myself, and I want to kind of talk a little bit more on this part in particular, because most people don't really get a chance to talk about like a relationship ending and really what it does to them.
Hmm.
Sometimes when we talk about it in general, we kind of do it in a way where we're like, you know, trying to get somebody to see your side or your perspective, and it's
Right.
hard to see it from an unbiased or a higher level. In my scenario, it was just me, just really, really just taking that time again to really look at all elements of it, good and bad, and try my best to focus on the good elements to kind of rebuild and retool about things that I needed from a relationship to go forward.
Hmm. Yeah, that's good. Actually, when you said you didn't recognize yourself, that's deep. A lot of people don't take the time to do that type of reflection. And I think that's why a lot of people don't seek help, because they don't take the time to look from another point of view. All they see is, like you said, I'm right, and if the people around you are like, yeah, that wasn't right, that's not cool, you have a hard time seeing where the change could be made within yourself. You had mentioned earlier that you have been dealing with, I guess, the anxiety and depression. Before all the things that happened with COVID, a lot of people that I talked to, that's kind of when things really, I guess, hit the fan. So, kind of what things were you going through that led to that anxiety and the depression? And then
Well,
after that, I want you to just talk about how you turned that around to good, because I want to get to the good stuff.
yeah, well, it was again a culmination of all those things just described. That one, the relationship shift, to the world itself was just changing as a whole. Even from, like I said, from my career standpoint, I was a rock star, like killing it. I was a government contractor, and you know, a lot of my stuff involved me in person working, and so trying to navigate and figure out how to actually like work from home and balance everything. And then as well, this is the same time we had like homeschooling, and
Mm,
trying to figure out how to like balance that as well. Uh, my social life, my personal life, trying to actually build into my friend circle, and then at the same time of this, I had this vision of of driving connectivity and figuring out and feeling like, hey, this is what I want to do with my free time with people who I care about once the world opens back up and the world kind of gets its act together. Then as well, once I started walking down that path, it wasn't like a instant like, oh, I felt better or whatever. It actually, I had some peaks and valleys of that, because when you have a vision for something that is not commonly done, it's very tough sometimes to get like the support of people, or it's tough to even verbalize it, to communicate it at that time. So it was a storm of things that would happen, but the other side of it was that I was able to take a lot of negative scenarios or negative things. I saw an opportunity, and really the driver of it was I wasn't pursuing any of this stuff because I wanted to be rich or be, have like the fame or be in the public eye. Actually, it was more the opposite. I wanted to actually be more behind the scenes. But it came to a point where I realized that I didn't want people to have the same negative outcome that I had from not just that romantic relationship, but from any kind of relationship. And I realized that quality time was how we characterize some of our best times with the people that we care about. Like, we always gravitate more towards when we are, out, at the movies or going to these different places and spaces with the people that we care about. And I realized that those memories that we build from that is something that I wanted to kind of capture and do something towards that.
Okay, I love that. So, like I mentioned earlier, you're the owner of Date Jar. You were kind of explaining to me behind the scenes the difference between Date Jar because you actually have an app called My Date Jar. So make sure
Correct.
you guys go download that. Um, so just talk to us. I understand that that kind of birthed out of the things that you were going through, turning the negative things or what seemed to be negative into a positive. Where did the name Date Jar come from? And then just tell us about all the things that you have going on with Date Jar and then the app itself.
Sure, sure. So the name itself literally came from the context of writing down ideas, putting them in a glass mason jar, and like shaking them up. I mean, the idea, I never thought it was actually going to be a business. And my background itself is IT, like software development. That's where, I've made my living. And literally the name itself, just like it was just very simplistic. I didn't want to overthink it. It just, it was literally a jar full of dates or things to do. They were inspired by like my friend circle. They were inspired by my kids. They were inspired by, memories of good things that I was able to achieve and do. And also in the background, my son is over here walking behind me like he don't realize I'm talking.
Not the run. That's funny.
But no, but I mean that's where it came from. So
Right.
the app was actually again, it's called My Date Jar because when I went down this path, even though technology and software is like my baby and like my brainchild,
Mhm.
really I thought of this as a lot more. So on top of the app, I have a product that goes along with it, which is a card game that helps with icebreakers and communication as a whole. It helps you with talking points for people who known each other for some time, or if you just met someone. And as well, I want to offer additional services that help people, again, just have the best times ever and to just be connected to one another, just really feel like you're tapped in. So that's where like the name and the idea itself came from. And I just differentiate the two a lot because Date Jar is meant to be an engine for so many more things and whatever opportunities that people are telling me that they need or there's a place for, I'm listening to them to kind of guide me on what I offer and what I'm doing because I want it all to work together in its own ecosystem and be very cohesive. So
Right. I love that. And you were saying that it's not just for like romantic relationships. Your idea is bigger than that, just any type of ships, friendships. So can you talk about like how you help with other things outside of just romantic relationships?
sure, yeah. So most people, when you see the name or you hear the name, it really comes off as like you're doing some kind of matchmaking or some kind of like hookup element to it, but that's not at all the case. Really, the app is just designed, and the service is once you get inside of it in seconds, you find fun things to do based off of where you're located or where you're about to go. And as well, depending on your mood, I have a virtual jar full of a list of experiences and things to do and how to execute them. So that's really the energy and so forth from on. I'm really just trying to give you to those people who really hate planning, the people who are always like, oh, there's nothing to do, or we're bored, or I'm tired of going to the same place and
Mhm.
spaces. And again, my focal point is not like really restaurants. It's really more experience-based things like indoor picnics, DIY like candle making.
Wow.
We're talking sports games. We're talking wineries, breweries. We're talking, really eclectic cafes. We're talking rooftop spots that are like a little bit off the beaten path. I really wanted to like challenge people to do things that either, what you're in the mood for, or things that push you out your comfort zone, because that's where, again, your memorable times come from that. And
Hmm.
so that's where, that whole offering and where I'm going with it.
So you're talking like girls' nights out. They want to go find
Yep.
somewhere to go.
Yep.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
I like
Yep.
that.
Yep. And
And how
also,
long? Go ahead.
say like also really too, I want you to this also be seen from like a self-care thing, because you need to take yourself out and treat yourself very well. Like I tend to see that a lot of my users are like busy people where they have families, or they're like really professionals, where their time is usually gets swallowed up by like family, work and different things like that. And I wanted to have one of those kind of things where you can just like slow down and
Mhm.
pour back into yourself, or pour back into, again, the relationships that you have, because again, usually the people that we care about, our friendships or our partner, spouse, and so on and so forth, they kind of get the back burner once you really get going, you know.
Mhm.
And I understand that. I've lived that, and I can relate to it. So this is something that I'm not just throwing it out there. This is something that's very close to my heart. And just again, I just want to communicate that we're just really driving people together, just in the ways that they feel true to them and that feels authentic.
And how long have you been? How long has your business been going?
Now we're going into a little bit over 2.5 years, and it
Okay.
seems like the time is flying. It's amazing, actually. I'm actually coming up on the next month will be the 2 year anniversary of the app itself being out into the world,
Okay.
and it just feels like a moment ago that I was actually fighting to get it actually out, in general,
Right.
and so yeah, it's been going, it's been going.
So, do you have any advice for anybody that is going through a tough time right now? How they can overcome that, turn it into something wonderful like you did?
Yes, I do actually. The first piece of advice I would be is just don't lie to yourself, be true to yourself, and recognize that something isn't right. Don't try to shrug it off, or just sunny side up it, where you're trying to smile through all this pain and so on. That's the first piece of advice I would say. Like, acknowledge what's going on with you so that you can take a moment to sit with it. It's being able to smile through it is not a flex. It
Right.
is a cool trait of strength, but really knowing when you're weak is when you're really being strong. So that's the first
Mhm.
part. The second level of it is that if you do have an idea, and if it's a real clear vision, that is something that's on your heart and that's on your mind, that's keeping, it's not just something that's just in fleeting and passing by. This is something that's really on your heart. Do it. Like, figure out some way to do it. And then the last part about it is it doesn't have to be perfect. It does not have to, you don't have to have everything all figured out. You don't have to know every in and out. You can figure it out along the way. And if you're really walking down that path and you're really trying to achieve, that vision, that goal, you will see that God, the universe, or whatever you subscribe to will put the people, places, and things to allow you to keep pushing it forward.
Mm.
And that's really overall the advice that I have, is that, and also last thing I'm just that's not really advice, but it's just a speaking life of that you can do it.
Mm.
Most people don't really hear that enough, or don't come from spaces where they hear people encouraging them or
Mhm.
supporting that vision, because even sometimes themselves it might sound like, oh, this is weird. Like, there's no
Mhm.
black, like I'm gonna give you a good example of a success story in a space that you normally don't hear about, but this highly impressed me. So I know a young black woman who actually is a pioneer in olive oil making, by cooking olive
Wow.
oil, and she has
Mhm.
her own olive oil company. Now,
Wow.
I can't give her full story and I can't speak on it in full, but from what I do know, that when she had different things happen to her in her personal life, she found a space where black women, or mostly black people, don't really be in, and she found an
Mhm.
opportunity and fully went for it, and has actually amazing olive oil that is
Mhm.
actually being featured in restaurants, and events and places and spaces that she's finding a lot of success going down a path that I know for sure when she probably told people, they probably looked at her like she was crazy,
Of
or looked at her
course.
like, why would you even want to do that? But she's
Right.
walking that path. So sometimes, even if it seems odd or it doesn't seem normal, walking down the path, because it's given to you, is worth the journey and the adventure.
I love that. I wanted to ask some more questions, but I feel like that's a great way to wrap things up. No, I just think that that's really awesome, and that's why we do the show to encourage people. Because, like you said, there's not many people around you for the most part that are saying, "Yeah, go ahead and do it." 9 times out of 10, they're trying to tell you why you can't do it, or why it didn't work, or why you shouldn't do it now. So I love that, especially being in the tech space. I have another show called Conversations with Black Women in Tech, and a lot of times the women that we talk to, they face so many challenges as you would expect, just because they're Black and a woman in that space. So they're
Yes,
told no, and they can't a lot.
yes, yes. I wanted to actually harp on that a little bit. I can really relate to that as a whole another segue, another topic. But I want to just say that most people don't realize that there are so many spaces and information and tools and resources out there to help you. There's this really huge misconception that all these things that you want to do, there's like an instant way to do it. Like there's almost like a shortcut or some element like that, but it's not. Um, Educating yourself, surrounding yourself with the right people, and then also, like I said, clearly, like not one foot in, one foot out, like clearly walking down that path will take you to those spaces and places that you want to go. So, and especially in the tech space, it's really cutthroat out here. It's not a joke. So yes, it
Yeah.
is real. I can relate.
Yes, especially now. I feel like because a lot of Black people are starting to migrate into that space more
Yep.
than ever. Now everybody's online. You can get these certifications. So there are so many people that are jumping into the tech space, and they're met with so much adversity.
Yep.
Um, and the fact that they keep pushing is admirable to me. Um, I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank
Make
you.
sure you download the app. Make sure you follow
Yes.
on Instagram, all the socials. My Date Jar.
Also, I
Uh,
want to say real quick on that. I want to say is that if you're downloading the app right now, I'm so committed to you actually finding the best experiences. That I have a challenge right now where it's called the First to 5K, and this is really giving 5,000 users totally free access inside the app where you can do everything inside the app. The only thing that is a cost itself is that if you find like an event to go to or a particular location and they have an offering that that is an actual cost, that's the only charge right now for you. So if you download the app right now and you're part of that first 5,000, you get the app full access free for a year. And
okay.
I'm hoping to hear how much it improves people's relationships or maybe help with new relationships. And again, I'm deeply committed to making sure that everybody has a great time.
How close are you to the 5,000?
Well, I've actually just touched close to 1,000, but
Okay.
right now that first group of 1,000 don't really count, and the reason why is because they were the people that when I first actually created the app itself, there was like a different version of it. And I
Mm-hmm.
used that group of people to actually figure out the next evolution of it. So I really stepped it up and I retooled and I reimagined the experiences and everything to really align to what they were asking for. So now that is like a full new phase. Those people they're in there, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
really starting essentially from scratch. So I got 1,000, but I'm actually going for a new 5,000. And again, this is for those people who've never heard of me and don't know anything about what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Again, giving you a path to fun.
Okay. Well, I just downloaded it, so and I'll make sure I talk about it on my tech show on Friday to make sure some more people download it.
Sweet.
Um, so hopefully you get to your 5,000 soon.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
yeah, I really appreciate you. Thank you for being on the show.